In this video, we'll look at all facets of the age of accounts factor of a personal credit score, especially what happens when a new account is opened. I'm Cap, and welcome to Screaming Lincoln's Consumer Credit Series. Sadly, there is no set number of years that qualifies as an excellent age for accounts because of the varied nature of credit scoring models. However, the consensus I found was to be about 10 years. The age of accounts factor only accounts for 15% of an overall credit score, but it is the foundation of building a lengthy credit history. But good news is, this foundation can be already laid out with an effective strategy involving authorized user accounts, or piggybacking as it's commonly called. More on that later. The age of accounts factor has several components under the FICO scoring model. First, it looks at how long each account has been open. Second, it looks at how long specific account types have been open. And lastly, it looks at the length of time since those accounts have been used.
But I've read that most scoring models go off the average age of accounts. Which is it? Account length or average account length?
It's both. Think about it. If you know the account length of all credit accounts, then you know the average account length. Some scoring models may give more weight to average length over length of each account, and vice versa. The real issue for some consumers is deciphering the overlap that age of accounts has with other credit factors. When a new account is open, that new account has a multifaceted impact on a credit score. What makes it hard to decipher are the pre-existing conditions of an individual's credit history. Let's delve deeper with a few examples. Someone with no credit history has nothing to lose because you have to start somewhere with credit. As mentioned earlier, people with no credit history can cheat their way to an extensive history by using the authorized user method or piggybacking. Another example, someone with a couple cards that have been open for a number of years will see their average age go down upon opening a new account. There's nothing that can be done to avoid this, and it's a constant source of frustration for consumers that like to pursue lucrative credit card sign-up bonuses as they engage in credit card churning. It's also frustrating for consumers new to the credit game and don't have much history to stand on. A final example, someone with a long history of many credit accounts will likely see very little impact to their average age. Now let's analyze the other credit factors. The new credit factor and credit utilization will be impacted in all three examples. These other factors can frustrate consumers that open new accounts because of the complexity of how each factor can affect the other. Let's go further down the rabbit hole with another example and see how other credit factors come into play when opening a new account. Here is someone that relies on one card for a few years now and has been great at keeping all factors in line to optimize their score for this single card. But by opening a new card, their average age of accounts gets cut in half, which is a negative. But the credit utilization ratio gets reduced with the extra account limit, which is a positive. But the new credit factor shows a new account in the credit history, which is a negative. The new account added won't have any effect on payment history in this instance. Based on all these positive and negative outcomes and the weight associated with each, it's very easy to see how complex things get when predicting if a score will go up or down based on activity like opening a new account. In our example, the overall effect should be negative for the following reasons. First, we have limited credit history. To minimize the impact a new account has on the age of accounts factor, you'll want to get as many new accounts reporting to the credit bureaus for as long as possible. Keep in mind, lenders will typically use their own proprietary scoring models that may emphasize average age of accounts over individual account age or vice versa. Never forget, lenders play by their own rules, which is why you'll likely see differences in scores from different sources. For example, many auto lenders use FICO Auto Score for car loans, while most banks use FICO's bank card scoring model for credit cards. Some lenders may tweak these FICO models further by adding their own additional conditions. Lenders are not required to adhere to the same scoring model, which explains why consumers may get different scores from different sources. Max weight here is 15%. Second, we have new credit. Anytime a new account is reported, the new credit factor will be negatively affected. It cannot be avoided unless, in rare cases, the lender doesn't report the new account. Max weight here is 10%. Lastly, we have credit utilization. Lower utilization translates to a higher score. But our individual already had low utilization, so it won't change much, which means it won't have an effect on the overall credit score, despite the utilization factor having more weight. Footnote: some proprietary scoring models do analyze the total available credit available to consumers and not just credit utilization. Again, not all lenders play by the same rules and employ varying credit score models, which can be frustrating for some consumers that don't know all the specifics of the ideal candidate the lender is looking for. End note. When it comes to most FICO models, consumers with shorter credit histories will usually experience more drops than increases to their scores when opening new accounts, especially if they're implementing the proper credit strategy to maximize their score, like in our example.
Yeah, but credit utilization is usually the reason for...
Yes, we all know. But as I just said in our example, the consumer already has low credit utilization. Again, if everything is held in check to optimize the score, then consumers with shorter histories will usually experience more drops than increases. There are rare cases where certain scoring models may prioritize the consumer's individual credit limits over the utilization, but that's not the norm, especially for FICO models. I'll go over a consumer with higher credit utilization in a moment as we tweak our example further. Consumers with longer histories will experience the same negative effect, all other things being equal. But their negative effect won't be as impactful. So again, there's a recurring theme here. Longer is better when it comes to accounts being reported, not just for the age of accounts factor, but for all factors. Let's revisit our same example and tweak it by adding 60% credit utilization. Now the new account's overall effect to their score should be positive because of the weight credit utilization has on a score coupled with a much lower utilization ratio. Now let's tweak our example a little more, this time by adding a new account with a much lower credit limit. Now the new account's overall effect is negative because it did little to improve credit utilization. The purpose of these tweaks is to give you an idea of how little changes can impact scores and how other factors can overlap into others like age of accounts. Most credit card churners I know will keep a group of no annual fee cards open for years to establish a lengthy history. Some will use the authorized user method to cheat their lengthy histories by piggybacking on the excellent payment history of the primary card holder. In the end, both activities benefit not only their age of accounts factor, but also their payment history factor, especially in the case of piggybacking on an ideal credit card as an authorized user. In looking at only the age of accounts factor, there is one truism. Longer histories are always better. Never close credit accounts unless the lengthy history benefit is outweighed by heavy costs like high annual fees. Even in high annual fee cases, it's possible to keep them open by getting the fee waived or product change the account to another credit product that has a lower or no annual fee, but that's a separate video topic. Closing cards definitely has an effect on age of accounts, especially if the account had a lengthy history. Once reported as closed, the age of accounts factor is immediately impacted. The closed account's history still shows in the credit report, which means the payment history benefit is still there. But since the account is now reported as closed, the age of accounts factor takes an immediate hit, along with credit utilization. The account mix factor is also impacted, especially if this was the only revolving account in the consumer's credit history. I once heard a financial expert advise a client to close a 10-year-old credit card because of all the interest they were paying. The client advised they had cut up the card already, but still had years to pay based on high balance and interest. I later spoke to the expert in private and inquired why closing was a viable option for the client. He simply advised the card was detrimental to the client's financial freedom, so they had to close it to sever any chance of running up the balance again. This answer puzzled me because the client already advised they cut up the card and were simply making payments. These payments weren't going away and still had to be paid. Why not benefit from them by keeping the 10-year-old account open? Moreover, after the account is fully paid, perhaps advise the client to develop their own credit activity scheme to keep the account active and reporting to the consumer credit reporting agencies with low recurring transactions. Then set the credit card to auto-pay from their bank account to pay the low amount due every month. It sounded like the high balance was getting paid anyways, so why not keep it open and minimize its effect on the client's credit score with a simple credit scheme? Then repeat this process with other accounts they have and keep the card stashed away in a sock drawer to avoid uncontrolled spending. In the end, the expert agreed, but neither of us was 100% correct due to the varied circumstances of different clients. But the key takeaway from this interaction for me was to never put all my financial trust with one person or entity. No one is a jack of all trades in finance. My specialty is credit, but if you ask me which is the best online broker for stock trades, hell if I know, but I use Vanguard and am pretty happy. In the end, try to keep accounts open and active as long as possible to improve the age of accounts factor, and always think it through when considering account closure.
What does specific account types mean? Are they like credit card versus a store credit card type?
No, all credit accounts can be classified into one of two types: revolving and installment. Net 30 term accounts are another type, but it's extremely rare to find a lender that offers this and reports the account to the consumer credit reporting agencies.
Wait, what about charge credit cards? You know, those cards that have to be paid in full every month? That's a type of net 30 term account, right? I would think so because you have to pay in full every month. Or is that wrong?
Charge cards are slightly different from credit cards, but they're still revolving accounts because their balances are allowed to go up and down over time. Net 30, 60, 90, or whatever term accounts typically get paid in full just like charge cards, sure. But the clock starts at different times.
How? I mean, a charge card gets paid off every month just like a net 30 term account, doesn't it?
Net term accounts are due within a set number of days from the date of the transaction. Charge cards and regular credit cards are due at some point after the statement end date. This due date is referred to as the payment due date. Charge cards batch transactions during a billing cycle and assigns the same payment due date to all of them once the cycle ends, whereas the net term accounts assign a different payment due date to each transaction itself. It's easy to see why term accounts like net 30 accounts are less used for consumers, and revolving accounts like credit cards are more prevalent. No one, not even the lender, wants to deal with all the overhead of generating invoices and having multiple payments. Batching is much easier, so revolving accounts are used. However, for business credit, you will find net term accounts, but that's a separate video topic.
Okay, so what exactly are these specific account types? I know you said revolving and installment, but I don't speak finance. Please translate.
Installment accounts are loans. Examples are student loans, car loans, personal loans, mortgages, and so on. They have a set term, a set interest rate, and a set number of payments for a set amount. Installment accounts are spelled out when they're open. balances only go down. Once paid off, the installment account is closed. Revolving accounts are credit cards and lines of credit. Credit cards, charge cards, retail store cards, home equity lines of credit, overdraft lines of credit are examples of revolving accounts. The account length is left up to the consumer or lender as to when the account should be closed. The interest rate typically fluctuates based on the prime rate and on-time payment history. The payment amounts vary each period based on usage. Balances can go up and down. Once paid off, the cycle repeats and the account remains open. Again, the same recurring theme regarding age of accounts applies to both. Get accounts to report for as long as possible for both types, preferably with minimal or no interest paid in the process.
All right, it's starting to sink in now. As far as the last point goes, are you sure that's right? Are lenders really looking at how long it's been since an account has been used?
Absolutely. Lenders don't issue credit accounts for nothing. It costs lenders money and other resources to keep consumer accounts open. Lenders have to pay to access borrower credit data too. They want to be certain consumers are using their credit products, which generates more revenue for the lender to cover these costs, and in some cases, generates huge profits via interest, late fees, and other ancillary fees. Lenders want to see activity, preferably every month, on their credit accounts. Some consumers see credit cards as an emergency fund they can tap into when life spirals out of control. The only issue with this approach is the lender may close the account before that happens and leave you stranded to pursue other options in your time of need. That said, it doesn't have to be thousands every month. A simple $1 load to an Amazon account works. But maybe you only have a store credit card like for Macy's. No problem. Walk into the store and inform the cashier you'd like to buy the smallest gift card possible and pay with your Macy's card. Or better yet, simply buy a $10 Macy's gift card online. Most retailers allow multiple gift cards to be redeemed in a single transaction, especially when purchasing in stores. This low recurring monthly activity scheme, coupled with auto pay to ensure the store credit card accounts are paid every month, are the foundation of achieving a great credit score. If you're new to the credit game, the only non-favorable factor in this scenario is time, which will come as each month passes. Retail store cards are not favored by experienced credit users, but they can be for consumers trying to build their history in the beginning of their credit journey. The scope of this video is knowing how to max out the age of accounts factor to improve a credit score, not which credit cards provide the best rewards. It's important to establish a great score first with an effective credit activity and payment scheme. The better credit rewards will come, along with another video from Screaming Lincolns going over some of those better credit options. Monthly activity, when coupled with an effective strategy, will go a long way in your credit journey. Why not get started today? Don't worry, I'm not here to solicit you or steer you towards some affiliate link credit product that gives me some commission for referrals. Not yet, at least. If you're genuinely curious about getting started, let me know in the comments on any of my videos anytime. I'll have another in-depth video on using gift cards as a form of budgeting instead of using less convenient methods like the cash envelope system. It's great because you still adhere to a budget and it's just as rigid as the envelope system, but it's much cleaner and convenient. You also get to build your credit history in the process.
Oh, sweet. Thanks. Can you share any other tricks or hacks to improve age of accounts? Like most people, I prefer not to wait decades to generate a lengthy history. Is there a way to cheat it?
Yes, I've already touched on it. Piggybacking involves becoming an authorized user on someone else's account. The authorized user inherits the credit history of the account, and just like that, their credit history is started. I've got another video that goes over authorized users and everything you want to know when being added. For those people who are new to the credit game and want to cheat their way to an extensive credit history, piggybacking is still a great option because you don't have to wait decades to build it all on your own. Just add yourself to a few trustworthy accounts to see your credit history grow, often within a few months or less. There are additional steps to ensure things go as planned, like making certain the account shows in your credit history, knowing what red flags to look for on the account, and so on, which is all laid out in my other video. The key takeaway is being added as an authorized user or piggybacking is still an effective strategy for hacking your way to a lengthy credit history without the decade-long wait of building it on your own. To summarize age of accounts, get as many accounts reporting for as long as possible to improve this factor of a score. I've gone over the 3 components FICO analyzes and provided examples on how age of accounts overlaps with other factors of a credit score. Please see my other videos for help understanding credit. Or better yet, hit me up in the comments direct with any questions you may have anytime. Your time is too important not to. What are you waiting for? Hit it, Steve.
Wow.